Get NC for Vanguard News. On Friday, November 10th, around 11 p.m., a fire broke out at the reserve of LaVista Walk Apartments, a four-story building complex on the edge of Laurentia's Buckhead community. Hundreds of residents had to be evacuated from the building. A dozen fire trucks were dispatched to the scene, and over 80 firefighters had to deal with putting out the fire. It has been reported that an Atlanta department officer who was a resident at a complex helped notify others to leave the building, and he also lost his home in the process. The officer's cat died in the fire as he was trying to rush his neighbors out of the burning building. 17 of the residents were treated for smoke inhalation and other injuries. While the Atlanta Police Department were investigating what was the cause of the fire, they discovered two people who were also residents of the complex were lighting fireworks on the complex rooftop around the time the fire had originally started. The officers arrested Charnel Gunn and Robert Stokes and charged them both with reckless conduct and criminal damage property. Atlanta Fire and Rescue Department are working on into to see if there were any code violations or issues with the building. As of right of this moment, there's no current timeline for the investigation, but there is a three-pronged approach where the fire had originated from, a look into code enforcement, and what was authorized by the City of Atlanta's Office of Buildings. The fire started with the roof line, where the alarm system didn't activate it right away. Dozens of units have been lost in the fire, and there's collateral damage to the complex. The officials will be looking at the structure to determine its status and see if it's stable enough to be brought up or if it will collapse.
Part of the unit above ours kind of collapsed into ours. So our unit's completely inaccessible. We're regarding it as a complete loss of everything in there. The building itself is irredeemable. They're going to have to tear it down and build a new one from the ground up. So yeah, it was a complete and total loss there.
In order for the tenants to get their stuff at the complex, they are facing a mandatory waiver. The tenants had every day except for Thanksgiving to have the option to get their belongings back. All of the tenants are from Building 2000 of the reserve at the LaVista Walk Apartments, which is part of the complex away from most of the fire damage.
There and a lack, therefore, of communication on behalf of the apartment complex. Once they sent out an email saying we could come get our cars out of the parking lot. So we got up the next morning and drove 2 hours down, and there was no update or anything, but the police had already shut down the building and deemed it, unstable at the time being. So no one was allowed to go in at all. They were having to have a strict perimeter, and there was no update there. So we had just spent 2 hours on the road going to get a car that had not been accessible since earlier in the morning than we had left. So we had to come back, I believe, the next day or the day after when it was finally secured, and we were able to access the ground floor of the parking garage. There was clear damage to some of the sprinkler units, like little holes cut out of the drywall underneath, or just corroded sprinkler heads. Also, for the most part, some of the appliances were just a little off. Like our dishwasher didn't come with the silverware rack, and the faucet to our bathroom sink broke almost immediately upon using the plunger part of it to stop up the water. And the maintenance request never came to check on it, I believe.
They're saying on the GoFundMe that they're going to disperse this money to the residents who were affected, but we haven't heard anything from them at all about the GoFundMe. They haven't told us anything about rent, if we're going to get reimbursed, or if we still need to give them something. I'm not giving them anything, but they really haven't told us anything at all. Kind of just radio silence, other than trying to get people to find a time to come get their stuff. But other than that, no, they have not provided any assistance or help.
At a certain point while I was doing homework, at which point both cats who were with me in the apartment ran to go hide because it was loud, And then I look out onto the balcony, but it's night. So there could have been smoke and I just didn't see it. But I just thought it was another case of a certain like apartment unit setting off a fire alarm or something like that, because that had happened frequently months prior. So I just went back to doing homework. I put my earbuds in. And then by the time I finished a certain problem, I went back outside to the balcony and I could see fire from the roof of the other side of the building. At that point, I knew I kind of needed to get what I needed to get, put it in the car and get out as soon as I could.
People can help support the residents who have lost their homes and items due to the fire by sharing and donating to the GoFundMe pages. Police's investigation into the building's code is ongoing. This is Rebecca Ansley for Vanguard News.